Good evening, everybody. So I am not sure if anyone is even going to be present for tonight's open discussion because I totally spaced to let you guys know what time I was going to do this tonight. So I'm not sure if anyone will be here or not. So I'm just going to give it a little bit. If some people come in, then we'll have our open discussion. If not, I will reschedule it. It kind of falls on me for forgetting to put out a post that we were going to be doing it tonight. Hey, Madison, how are you doing? I'm trying to clean off my glasses. I know it's going to be super distracting with the ring light and everything, but it's been a busy day. I've gotten a lot done, but I have a slight headache. So I'll try to keep my head somewhat tilted so maybe you guys don't get as much of the reflection off of them. But I just need to have my glasses on for if I'm going to be reading you guys' comments so I don't get a migraine. Hey, Angela. Hey, Zoe. Hey, Jay. Hey, Captain T. How's everybody doing? Hey, Burrett. How are you guys? I hope everybody has had a good day. Sorry for the feedback. I'm going to go and pull. Pretty sure I know what was picked, but I want to triple check before we get on topic tonight. All right. Hey, Camilla, how are you? Long day at work. Glad to be chilling. Yeah, I mean, I was lucky enough to have today off. So rather than, which I don't know if everybody knows, but like I'm on a weight loss journey and everything like that. And Sundays are typically the days that I've been using to like meal prep for my husband and I for the week. But yesterday just wasn't it. Knowing I had today off, I procrastinated, which is a very, very bad trait of mine. I am a huge procrastinator. So I put it off. And so I've been doing that today and then realizing we didn't have everything. So having to go grocery shopping. I'm also, some of you guys know, some don't. I have like a second channel that's hardly anything for my side business slash crafts. And my family are huge Green Bay Packer fans. And my mom has requested that I do some Green Bay Packer glittery girly tumblers. So that is, I had to go to Michael's today to get some of the supplies for that because I'm going to try and do an acrylic pour and then the glitter and then the decals. That's my vision. I've got to do one for testing purposes to see if it turns out the way that she wants it before she orders them for all of the ladies in our family. But I might film that for that channel. I haven't filmed anything over there in a while. I started a project for a friend of mine and I haven't finished it. I started it like a month ago and I've just gotten too busy. You had Caesar salad for dinner, chicken Caesar salad for dinner. I have not yet had dinner, which is not ideal, but we just got home literally like 5 minutes ago. So I didn't have enough time to eat. My husband's actually, I can hear him moving around in the kitchen. He's eating right now. You live halfway hour away from Lambeau Field. The last game that Brett Favre played at their home field, we went to. It was, I can't remember what happened, but for some reason there were not a lot of, it wasn't like a huge game. And it might have been like a practice or something. I can't remember. But I saw one of his last home home practices or something like that where the public can go into. My family and I went. It was a long time ago. I understand. And I don't want it to be confused. I don't want it to seem misconstrued. I watch football. I understand football. I do not follow football. I am a Green Bay Packer fan because that's what my family is. I don't follow closely enough to have a team that I root for. And my husband's kind of like the same, to be honest. He's not a huge sports guy either. Like neither one of us really follows sports. So you don't follow that closely. Yeah. I mean, I just go with whatever my family is, to be quite honest. I'll watch it if everybody else is watching it, or if we go to somebody's house and they're into football and it's playing. Like I can follow a game. I was in marching band in high school. I cheerleaded. I was a cheerleader growing up. So I definitely understand how football works. I just never was really into it. So now that I have been rambling about stuff that does not pertain to our open discussion tonight, I was given a few minutes just because I had a snafu and forgot to post for everybody that I was going to be doing this at what time tonight, which probably turned out to be in my favor because my day has been all over the place. So, hey, Lisa. So hey, Jen. Maybe notifications are just now going out for some people. Maybe it's a good thing I waited and rambled about useless stuff that I did today, if anybody was interested. So tonight's topic, I only put 2 up. These were 2 that have been mentioned that we've talked about today's topic, substance abuse. We've talked about that before. As the channel grows, though, more people want to participate in these. More people are realizing what these are and want to be here for them. So today is substance abuse. I have a few off the wall ideas to put into next week if nobody has any suggestions. So there will be a couple of weird different ones to pick from on Friday than what we have. I was just cycling through everything that has been brought up recently by subscribers. During these kinds of conversations, I do try to pay attention to see what's brought up, what people want to talk about, and keep them in line. That way, if enough interest is shown from a few different people on a particular topic, I do take notice of that and do mentally take a note if I don't physically write it down, so that everybody can have their piece to talk about it. So a little bit of a disclaimer for anyone who has not participated in an open discussion before. We do talk about serious issues. We do, if you want to share your personal experience, you can. We just kind of share information, knowledge. Hey, Crystal, I have talked before about, I can't remember at this point if it was in one of my members only live streams or if it was in a public live stream, why I'm comfortable talking about substance abuse. And I'm going to get into that because as I've gotten more people who are seeing the channel and who have participated in these, I still get a little bit of criticism that people don't, for some people, it's near and dear to them, and they don't want somebody who maybe doesn't know any different to be talking about something that can be triggering or that can be just hard to talk about. So I'm going to provide some information about myself. So anybody who watches this in the replay or anybody who is not participated in one of these knows I have a bachelor's in social work, so I am fairly educated when it comes to substance abuse and the effects it have on like a on an educational level, but professionally for the past 5 years, I have worked very closely with addiction and people in addiction. I was a child protective investigator for the state of Florida for 3 years. And for the past year, I guess 3.5, for the past year, I work with the courts in like a pre-diversion. I'm pretty much a probation officer, and a lot of the clients that I have are people who are substance dependent. And it is a pre-diversion program, if you don't know, is where we take more of a social worker role from probation officers, and we assist the client into getting into the appropriate treatment. They go through a full biopsychosocial to make sure that they are being clinically given the level of treatment required. And then it's my job to help encourage and assist the individual to not only fill out their court obligations and be able to read their court documents, but to also make sure that they are getting their way through recovery to the best that they can. Of course, if you've ever known anybody in addiction or have ever been in addiction, this is not a fun place for me to be. It is a very hard job to have, but I enjoy the work that I get to do and how I get to help people. And I'm always learning something new from my clients. So I do feel comfortable talking about substance abuse for a lot of reasons. I have a lot of professional experience. I've never used any substances. I mean, I'm not going to say never, because I have drank alcohol before, and I don't think I ever reached the point of alcoholism, but I did for a while in my early 20s. It wasn't just a partying thing for me. I was coping while my husband was on his first deployment. I was excessively drinking, and it did have to get brought to my attention by my family. So it was almost to that point. So I have struggled with drinking before. I've never used any other. I think I smoked weed once. I didn't like it. I used to smoke cigarettes. I've talked about that. I quit like 5 months ago. I smoked while having this channel. I quit, I believe, in July or August, maybe September. I quit smoking cold turkey. So I definitely have some personal struggles. In addition to that, I also have had family members very close to us who have battled severe addiction, such as we've had one family member who was addicted to methamphetamines. I've had a family member addicted to fentanyl and Xanax. So I have a lot of experience, and that's why I'm comfortable openly talking with the public on such serious issues. Sorry, I'm really thirsty. You think, hey, Terry. It's okay. It's okay. I don't pay enough attention to her surrounding furniture. So I didn't even know that's what her pillow said. Hey, Amber, how are you? Thank you, Zoe. Yeah, I quit a while ago. And I've really not struggled with wanting to pick it back up. I'm not here to lie to you guys. Like when we had family here over the Christmas, I did smoke 1 or 2 cigarettes. I bummed 1 or 2 from my brother-in-law, but it wasn't enough. It was more of like it was there. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna see how it is. It wasn't like I smoked it and it was like terrible. It was just like smoking any other time, but it didn't instill for me to go out and buy a pack of cigarettes and start smoking again. So, hey, Kat. You're 5 years clean and sober. That is awesome. That is awesome. Anybody who is in any amount of sobriety, whether it's a second, a minute, a day, an hour, a week, a year, or more than that, like just taking that one step, that's all that matters. Taking that one step, and you should be proud of yourself. All too often, it ends up being a lot of the fallback is there is no support. There is no follow through, whether that's from family or friends or professionals. I mean, as an adult, of course, some of the accountability piece is on the person who has used or is using, but they don't get there on their own typically. Hey, Christophan, glad you made it. Hey, Rocklist. Hey, T King, how is everybody doing tonight? Yes, fentanyl and meth are extremely scary. Both people that these were two separate individuals in the family. Both are clean. Well, one smokes marijuana, but they're in a state that it's legal. And I can't remember if the other one has started up again or not, or if they're still totally in recovery. That's amazing, Crystal. You too, T King. For me, it was once I was finally made the decision to stop smoking cigarettes, it wasn't hard for me to, and that's very much my personality. Once I get to a point and I'm just like done, I don't struggle with any follow through. Like even when I was, like I said, when I was younger, I kind of got out of hand with drinking, and it didn't last for very long. It was only a few months, not to diminish anything, but I was kind of really like, and I wasn't out of control, but just for lack of a better term, I was only out of control for a couple of months, and my husband was gone for 8. So I went downhill fairly quickly. It was very obvious that I wasn't taking care of myself. And I lived close enough to my parents that they could tell that I wasn't behaving in a very mature way. And they talked to me. At the time, I was not very open to what they had to say, but I did listen. And now, I mean, I still drink. It's not anything to where I don't partake in alcoholic beverages, but I only drink socially. We have beer, and I think it's whiskey, because my husband drinks mules. So whenever his family's around, they will drink the Irish or German mules. I can't remember which ones that they like. And we haven't touched it since they left. Neither one of us are big alcohol drinkers unless we're with others. And even then, one of us is typically making sure one of it, like we typically plan who's going to be the one to stay sober for that night, whether it's an issue where we're staying home or if we're out on the town. One of us always tries to make sure that we're level-headed. Let me see what you guys are saying. Yeah, that first step is definitely the hardest and the scariest. Once you make the decision and you commit to it, I think it becomes a little bit easier, but nothing about recovery is the same for everybody. It's very situational. It also is going to be very dependent on what substance you were using. That makes all the difference into how your recovery is. And it's I'll talk about that here in a second. I just don't want to diminish anybody providing their experience. That's awesome, Lisa. 30 years is a very, very long time. Hey, Miss Nay. Yeah, so you kind of grew up in it, and that's what I see a lot when I was working with CPS is generational use, which it sounds weird, but a lot of neglect, not so much abuse, but a lot of neglect comes from parents who are using. It's hard for anybody who is in active addiction or recently out of addiction to fully understand the impact that their use, whether they sheltered it from their children or not, does have some kind of impact to them. And it typically is from neglect, not really from abuse. It bothers me that my green shirt underneath is peeking through. I don't know if that bothers you guys. Hey, Chloe. Definitely understand, Camelia. Like I said at the beginning, if this topic is triggering for anybody, don't feel like you have to stay. For anybody, don't feel you have to share your story or your experience or what you know from others. Only share with what you're comfortable with. There's always numbers to reach out to. You can always Google them. As I always say, you can always dial star 211 from your phone for any kind of local resources if you're in the US. Yes, it is. Part of addiction is extremely hard on almost everybody in the family, not just the children. Hey, Gina Marie. You got drunk once and at 18 and never again have you been drunk and you're 51. That's something that not a lot of people can say. I definitely can't say that. I know hangovers are absolutely terrible, and I never really understood people who said like, oh, once you get older, the hangover is like unlivable almost. And I'm only 30, and it's been, I can't even remember the last time I was actually like drunk. It had to have been at least a year ago. I think it was before we moved, and my hangover was a few days to actually like get back to not feeling crappy. Lisa, that's something that does have a lot of taboo depending on where you're at, I've noticed. As far as like coming off of substances or coming down from substances with the assistance of medication. In Florida, it was not frowned upon to medically have assistance with prescriptions to help you get off of opiates. And it was common as long as people weren't abusing that, which there is always a concern there. But here in Utah, it is almost taboo for people to be open. Even think of the ability to use like medication to help them detox, and it's just crazy to me. It's hard. I have to have that conversation more than I have other conversations just because it's so stigmatized here, and a lot of that is because of where I'm at in particular. I'm not trying to talk about religion. I'm just making a point here. Mormonism is still very strong in the communities around me. So it is very against a lot of what they believe in. So it's a hard conversation to have and just to try and provide education. All of my clients are adults. I work with the adult population. in my job. And oftentimes when it comes to a serious point of we've tried different kinds of treatments and going into different treatment levels and it not being enough to help them curb their opiate addiction, it's a conversation we have to have for their safety. And most of the time I'm having to talk to the parents and make the parents of these adult people who some of my clients are really, really adult, like could be my parent. And I'm having to have a conversation with their parents about like having to kind of drop the stigma to save their child who's an adult. It's very interesting. Quitting smoking was the hardest thing you ever done. For me, and I know everybody's experience with everything is different. For me, it wasn't that hard. Once I finally made the decision, smoked my last cigarette, I did get an electronic, like one of those e-cigs, and used it for like a week, and I half used it. I didn't like the way that it wasn't the taste. It was more like I didn't like the feeling, and I think it was just too potent, and it would burn my throat. Like I would cough afterwards. And when I would smoke the cigarettes I did smoke, I never coughed after I had smoked. So it was weird, which made it a little bit easier to not trade one thing for another. Hey, Catherine with a C, I'm glad to see you. Need a role model. I don't know if you've seen, did I say in my first video what size I was at? My next video should be out for you guys, probably over the weekend. Yeah, alcohol is a serious issue that does get overlooked due to the legal aspect, which it's going to be interesting. And we've already seen some of this happen in the courts, excuse me, and in some of like the professional jobs I've had as far as like marijuana goes, and with the legalization of that medically in most places, and then even some states have it recreational use is not against the law. Of course, there's laws around recreation use and what you can have on you and things like that. So it's been interesting to see that play out in like the professional spheres that I work in. So I mean, things are ever changing. Yeah, my current job is pretty much a probation officer. I work with the courts where I'm at and with the clients from the court. My job is really hard to kind of explain. In layman's terms, I'm a probation officer because I'm held to the standard to make sure that clients are fulfilling their court orders. But a part of that court order is to complete treatment. And the treatment comes from the biopsychosocial that our clinicians do. So I teeter a line. I offer services as well as making sure that they follow through with their court orders and reading their court orders and keeping up with that information for them. Hey, Liz, how are you? Hey, April. Hey, Stephanie. 15 months clean. That's awesome. Unfortunately, a lot of people feel that they do, in order to actually start getting into like legitimate recovery, and I don't mean this to be offensive to anybody, but not just stints of being sober, but to get into recovery, they often end up having to feel that they need to lose everything to start their recovery journey seriously, rather than just have some longer periods of time throughout their life where they are temporarily sober. Hey, Heather. And that's yeah, Stephanie, you experience what I feel a lot of people who have used different kinds of substances. It has come from stemming from an accident of some kind or a medical procedure of some kind where they were initially legally taking these substances, and then they started to maybe abuse their medication, and then they couldn't get off of the high or the fix that they were getting from the medication. That's why the US and other parts of the world as well are dealing with such a high epidemic when it comes to opiates, because of the shilling that doctors did to get kickbacks on some very serious and very life-changing opiates and pain medications. It's really crappy to see that and to know like that's kind of how we got to where we're at, is because of some doctors were just greedy, some didn't know any better, some didn't wait for the full research to be out there, so they were just prescribing these medications at high milligrams to people, not really instructing them of the side effects or what can come of it if they're not careful when they're taking the medications. It's really crappy when you really look at it. Yeah, Captain T. I have family members who have had gastric bypass, and there's a lot of things that once they had the surgery, they no longer could really stomach. Alcohol was one of them. Another one for one of the people was like meat, like steak. It had to be cooked a certain way, and it couldn't be hickory wood cooked. Otherwise, they would their stomach would get upset and they'd end up sick. There's a couple of other foods that family member can't really eat anymore since having that surgery. I don't know if that was ever talked about. I don't know. Hey, Mouse. I'm glad you were able and like you had the awareness to call for help for yourself. Stephanie, and I'm glad you run something for people for detox, because something that is lacking in a lot of communities, like almost worldwide, is not having legitimate detox facilities. In Florida, I can tell you where I was at, I think there was maybe two. Here, where I'm at currently, there's a lot more resources for substance abuse than where there was what there was compared to where I was at in Florida. And I feel the substance use that was occurring in both communities was about the same. So it goes to show that like resources are not always there, unfortunately. Hey, Michelle. I absolutely agree. Medically assisted detox should not, in my opinion, should not be so stigmatized. It really shouldn't. If it's what's best for the patient or the client, I don't feel it should be held against them in a negative way as long as they're doing it healthily. I'm not ignorant and I'm not naive. I understand people abuse some forms of medication to help when it's medically prescribed. However, with some of these very serious opiates, it's typically a taper, and it's typically the facilities don't, you have to graduate to a certain point in the program to even be able to take your medication from the facility. Otherwise, you're going to the facility every day to get your dosage. And that way it is being monitored and it can't really be abused. You're munching on some dinner. Hey, Zence. And you bring a good point. Some people can be functional. Like, some people can be functional alcoholics. I know of functioning drug addicts as well on like serious substances like meth. It's not unheard of. It's not. Is it hard to comprehend? Yes, but some people have the ability to use and abuse, whether it be alcohol or illicit drugs, and they're still able to function and hold a job and do well at their job. Even, I mean, just because you have a substance abuse issue or you're an addict doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. It doesn't mean that you're any less of a person than the rest of us. It just means that you're struggling differently. We all are struggling with something in our lives, and some people's coping mechanisms end up being drugs. Yeah, Carrie, I find a lot of when you talk to social workers or healthcare workers or people who work with mental health patients or in substance abuse facilities, typically there is a passion there for a reason. When you're doing it because you're passionate about the people you're working with and you're working for, there is usually something that you have either experienced or you witnessed or you were unfortunately traumatized by. And it's not even always as a child, it can happen in adulthood too, but it triggers you to want to give back to that community. It triggers you to want to help that particular sector of people. So I definitely understand what you mean, Carrie. Resources are hard to find in a lot of places, Jen. The best advice I can give is just to make sure that you're looking, if you're ever serving that kind of population or you come into contact with that population and you just want it for like knowledge, is to just see what's closest. Yeah, if people aren't ready for, if somebody is in addiction, and this is hard that I deal with every day of my job, is if the individual isn't ready, it's really hard. I do everything I can in a multitude of ways. And we have resources and stuff that we utilize, but it's very, very hard when they're just not ready or they don't want to change. Hey, Tina. Hey, Red. You're, yeah, once you have a criminal record, you can, for anyone who's out there, like if you have a criminal record, there's ways to get things off of your record so you don't have a record anymore. It is extremely hard though, and extremely time consuming, but there is ways to get those resources. And if you're in that situation, you don't have to out yourself here. You can reach out to me in DMs or an email, and I will tell you what what website to go to. And you will need to obtain an attorney to assist you. Most often, it's not required, but it does make the situation easier. Yeah, some places it's actually quite common for jails to not help people detox unless it's alcohol, because detoxing from alcohol is can be fatal. Yeah, it definitely depends on where you're at as far as probation. The probation that I do is at no cost. The client doesn't pay us for our services. My job is stressful. Almost every job I've had since I've gotten my degree has been stressful, but it's the communities that I want to work for. I've been open with you guys. I like my job. I like giving back. I would much prefer to be working with children. That's just where my passion is due to my history, but I'm happy with where I'm at. Sorry, I'm getting water. Here, come get my cup. You won't be seen. I have it where you won't be seen. Thank you. I don't want my jug. Thank you. Sorry, I drank all of that water. I'm super thirsty. A lot of part of my weight loss is drinking a lot of water. And since I've gotten accustomed to drinking my infused water and a lot of it a day, since we were gone from the house for a while, I feel like I'm really dehydrated. I'm so sorry, Tina, that you experienced that. And I'm sure during your road to recovery, you probably have met other individuals with somewhat similar stories and reasons to put them into addiction. That is one of the hardest, but I'm not unfamiliar with that being a reason that pushes people into addiction to begin with. Tina, you probably have an amazing inspirational story. just by what you're putting in here, and I'm sure others who are sharing little bits, you guys do as well. But this is why working with this population is so rewarding at the end of the day, because despite all of this shit, and I mean that literally, despite all of the shit as humans that we unfortunately are faced to deal with at times in our lives, you have individuals that are in this chat and that are all around you daily who have gone through some of the hardest, most terrible things ever and have overcome it all to be successful, to be independent, to be stable. It is so wonderful, and it gives you such a feeling of just pure happiness when you know that they fought for what they have. It's very beautiful. Oh, Captain T, yours went the other way. I did misunderstand your comment. I apologize. New Jersey has a waiting list for resources. Certain places are in, I think almost, I mean, I don't know because I don't know New Jersey's resources. I'm not there. I believe you. A lot of places don't have enough resources for the human population at hand. And the reality is almost everybody has some kind of ailment, whether it's addiction, whether it's mental health, whether it's a combination of the two, because that's something I've never talked about, because I feel like you almost need to be a master's or like clinically be able to talk about mental health and substance abuse together because of the chemical dependencies and things that are going on. I don't want to ever misinform or miseducate. And when talking about the co-capabilities that mental health and substances can have is very often occurring. Self-medicating without even realizing self-medicating is occurring, but that is often an issue, and there's not enough facilities, I don't think, anywhere that really can accommodate for everybody's need. I'm sorry you've had that experience with legitimate detoxes. It depends on what substances you're detoxing off of and what the physician feels. It depends on where you're at and where you're at as far as like your state, your county, and things like that, and where they're at with their substance abuse program. That's really at the end of the day what I have realized doing similar work in two different states. It very much depends on the local politics and where locally the law is with things, and where the politicians sit with certain things on the difference that the community will have with resources and funding for the resources. Yeah, Carrie, I've seen it both ways. I've seen facilities here are legitimate. Where I'm at currently do have legitimate detox facilities, with a physician, with 24-hour nurses, with different kinds of medication depending on what your substance is that you're addicted to. Whereas in Florida, it was very much kind of what he's saying, where I was from in Florida anyways, where it was kind of like a holding until you're stable enough to be put back out. Alcohol, not so much, because everybody knows how dangerous withdrawing from alcohol can be. I know I'm behind in the chat. I'm trying to catch up, but I want to make sure everybody's comments are being read. I really enjoy seeing you guys like connecting over similar, aside from like helping break stigmas and just provide the experience that I have, whether that's through telling what I've seen or what I know to happen, or using my education to help facilitate these. Seeing people come together as a community to help further support each other is really the root of these open discussions. That is amazing, Miss Mandy. I hope you are able to continue to keep on keeping on the good road to recovery. I'm sure you have it in you. You've made it this far. You can definitely keep going. Yeah, Miss Mandy, I definitely understand what you mean. I've never worked in a detox facility, so I can only imagine what some of those workers go through, but they're trained and they know what is going to happen. I have seen people in the middle of withdrawal trying to do it on their own. I've seen people actively under the influence. And it is a world of difference. It really is. It also depends on what, everything really boils down to what is being used. Yeah, you're right, House of Teal. It is more rare to hear that somebody doesn't have some kind of addiction. Yeah, I think dual diagnosis has been an ongoing issue. I just think now it's actually being acknowledged. Yeah, so I hope you're doing okay with all of that. You know, you can reach out to me if you're not, or if you need any kind of support. I just lost myself in the chat. I'm trying to catch up to you guys. Yeah, House of Teal, you're not incorrect in, like, once you're in addiction, you tend to have addictive traits. You tend to easily become addicted to other things. That's why if you're ever to the point where you are in treatment for it, it's usually a part of the treatment program that I am familiar with to be doing like CBT and other kind of skill building to help diminish those kinds of behaviors from occurring, to help people learn how to cope with understanding the behaviors. I don't know, Heather, if you're here anymore, if I said something that offended you in relation to me quitting smoking. I personally was able to quit without anything. I was not saying that other people needed to quit that way. That was just my experience. Sorry if you got offended, or if I said it in a way that made it seem like you have to do it the way I did it. That's not what I had intended that to come off as. Your addiction switched to motorcycles and extreme off-roading. You would probably end up being one of my husband's best friends then. He is really into those kinds of sports. I don't mind them, but I'm not a huge adrenaline junkie, and I feel like that's what really gets released, is like your adrenaline, and he very much is into that kind of thing. So he has to really, really ask me for me to go. Otherwise, I would prefer not to. Miss Mandy, it sounds like you're doing everything you can to make sure that you stay on the right path for yourself. Always do what you feel is best. You know yourself best. You know your patterns best. Hopefully, what you've learned in treatment so far is to identify when you start to lose track of where you're at and you start to fall into old habits. Hopefully you have been able to acknowledge that. So when or if you face that in the near future, you're able to acknowledge it and cope with it. And if you can't cope with it on your own, you feel comfortable to reaching out to a professional, whether it's one you've worked with before that you currently are still working with, to help you through whatever hurdle you're facing. I see it's kind of been a theme throughout tonight, as people will say, and I'm not saying this to any one person, I'm just to help everybody maybe understand, because I'm reading the chat, so I've seen it all night, is I've been sober for however long, and some are longer periods of time than other, and it follows up with, and I'm still in counseling. Guys, this stigma, and I'm sure those of you who are in counseling understand, the stigma around counseling really just needs to like go away. We're in 2021. We as humans, as an adult, you're dealing with something. We all are. We're all dealing with something, whether it's pertaining to substances, or it's pertaining to a shitty relationship you were in before, or if it's pertaining to a lack of self-esteem, lack of self-confidence, anxiety, depression. I'm not trying to say these are all the same, because that's definitely not what I'm saying here. But what I'm saying is we all deal with shit. We all need counseling. It shouldn't be, well, I think it should be an encouragement. I think once you reach a certain age, it should be a part of your yearly doctor's appointments to actually go and talk to a mental health professional as well, just to make sure, like, check in on you, because as each year passes, you're dealing with more and more stuff. And if you've already dealt with stuff and you've never decompressed it appropriately, you're just continuing to pile it on, and it does affect parts of your life. Whether you realize it or not, it's affecting something or someone. Counseling to me is something that everybody should get. I'm glad so many of you guys have. It seems I've been watching you guys kind of talk with each other, and it seems that some socials are being exchanged, and that's a good feeling for me. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like, that, to me, this has been one of the most successful open discussions. I've had other really good ones too, but where it seems that everybody in the chat is really supportive of each other, and like really wanting to provide that ongoing support. And I know how important that is. Yeah, Julie, you make a good point. You think it helps in recovery and motivation to be able to help others as you go down your own path. I feel like it's a sense of giving back almost. Hey, it's just chat. You hate adrenaline. I don't mind adrenaline. Let me put it this way. My husband is very much a daredevil. Like, he will make some choices when I have gone off-roading clearly with him, and he makes some choices that I'm like scared we're going to not live through it. We typically go off-roading in his truck, and I am not going to lie, when he says he's about to do something, there's been times where I've physically gotten out of the vehicle and like walked away because I was terrified. So most of the time I've gotten better at just like trusting him and writing it out. But he knows that if I get too scared or if I'm afraid it's going to end up in like serious danger, I will get out. Right, Diane? They should assign you to somebody at birth. It would probably help. Right, Jen? I mean, it can help in so many different ways. Yeah, counseling, I 100% agree, needs to be normalized. I'm glad I'm not the only one who doesn't like huge adrenaline rushes. Hey, country princess. Yeah, there's been a lot of shift. You bring up a very good point, Crystal. There's been a lot of shift in how these treatment facilities and like NA and AA, how a lot of the resources for substance abuse have had to kind of change how they're operating because of COVID. A lot of stuff, as numbers have spiked, even like around, excuse me, around me, facilities were having to do a lot of telehealth. At one point in time, I was having to do telehealth. It lasted only 2 weeks, but I mean, the sentiment is there. COVID has affected how almost everything operates, even the courts. Like courts aren't actually being done in person right now. It's just crazy. And because of how companies and businesses and political offices, courts, all of that kind of stuff, how they have had to adjust due to COVID has put in like how companies are changing how they're going to move forward in the future. Some jobs that were like office jobs, people are realizing they can have their employees work from home, which would save money on for the business in the grand scheme of things. It saves their rent money, it saves the electric or whatever else to run the space that either they bought to build or that they were renting from because it was already built to have their business in. I mean, it's just crazy when you think of it that way. I was getting off on a side tangent. I'm sorry. Adrenaline cures your anxiety. I mean, and that you make a very valid point there because some people feel like there's a stereotype on what anxiety looks like and how anxiety should be treated, and it's so different for everyone. You don't mind four-wheeling? And it also depends on what four-wheeling we're talking about. If we're talking about like on a four-wheeler, we don't have any of those. My husband wants to get one. I'm not a huge fan of the idea. He has his truck that he can go off-roading in. I understand it's not the same, but he can rent and he has friends that he could go four-wheeling with. He grew up on four wheels and dirt bikes and had a street bike when he was younger, and he has his truck. He waited a long time to get his truck. He has a Tacoma and he's obsessed with it. No, Catherine, actually, because of the pandemic, there hasn't been an increase in cases because all of my cases are sent to me by the court. And since court was delayed and pushed back, people weren't being adjudicated. I get all of my clients that I see are post adjudication. So it's after they've either agreed to a plea or they've been sentenced. Otherwise, they're not my client. A part of our program works with people before they are sentenced, but that's not where I'm at. I work with post adjudication clients. Your anxiety is different daily. Yeah. I think everybody who suffers from anxiety, it manifests differently. And everybody has different triggers. Everybody has different coping mechanisms. I think everything about mental health is so personal. There's blanketed prescriptions to reduce the overall effects because of the chemical imbalance that's occurring in us as humans, but like how it is actually triggered or how it manifests or anything like that is so personal. Miss Mandy, if you're worried about that S word, um, have him evaluated. Even as an adult, there's involuntary ways, not what I really want to talk about because people get frustrated when people talk about this, but I'm going to do it anyways for the safety of your family. If that is a legitimate concern, get a professional involved, whether that's law enforcement, because most law enforcement can make the decision by questioning somebody. If you have a mobile response unit for mental health in your area, just Google that. Have them come and do an evaluation on him. It doesn't matter if he's an adult. If he reaches a threshold where he's a concern for like his safety to himself or others, he needs to be admitted. And once they're admitted, they see a mental health professional, and ongoing treatment is discussed from those evaluations. As far as like daily counseling, unfortunately, you can't force anybody who's an adult who's 18 or over to go into counseling. Okay, Michelle. Thank you for being here while you could. I had an Isuzu for a while, Tina. That was in Florida, though, and where we were at, there wasn't a whole lot of off-roading. So we didn't take it off-roading. It also wasn't in the best condition. So I did have a similar vehicle. Currently, my husband has a Tacoma that he's been getting all the bells and whistles for to make sure that It's what he wants. He's done a lot to it, but he recently got a light bar for it. With some of his Christmas money that he got, he bought a light bar so he could see at night. I probably will never go off-roading with him at night. He scares me during the day. I couldn't imagine going at night, especially in Utah. Like if you guys look up some of the places to go off-roading in Utah, some areas are super scary. In your state, you can't force a kid over 12 into counseling. They have to sign for their own consent. I have never heard of that. That is interesting. No, Miss Mandy, that's totally fine. That's why these are here for. If you need any other information, you can reach out to me on Instagram or Twitter and DM me, or you can email me and I will help you further. Washington State, yeah, I'm not familiar with the states I've never been in or lived in or worked in. That's, I'm sure for a parent, if it's in related to a child that you have custody of or that you are the guardian of, I'm sure there's things you can do to get a child who's 12 uh, to get into counseling. It's probably, there has to be loopholes. That's concerning that the mom blocked it. Sheila, I'm sorry you experienced something like that. Hopefully that's not currently happening and it's something that there was already some kind of resolution to. I'm so sorry. Country princess, you live in a military, there's 5 military installations and 3 gun ranges. There was a lot of military installations where I lived at too, so I wonder, of course, Lisa. Hey, Julie. I don't work for CPS in Utah. Yeah, I'm currently living in Utah, but I've never worked for CPS here in Utah. I worked for CPS for 3 years in Florida. I have not gotten into CPS here in Utah. I work between the courts and treatment facilities for most of our clients are dependent on substances. I'm so sorry, Sheila. That has to be really frustrating for you. And I'm sure um, his dad, I don't want to make assumptions that you're still married to him, but like, that's got to be hard. I'm really sorry. You're in Washington. Night wheeling is your favorite. It's just too scary to me. Thank your family members for their service. think anybody who has any family or friends who serve our country, I've been pretty open. My husband is active duty, and my dad was military. He retired from the military. Unfortunately, I know way too much about military life. I know how hard it can be. Oh my gosh, Sheila, I am so sorry. I don't want to have I don't want to put you particularly in your story and everything you're saying on the spot, but if you want any suggestions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me. I will help you to the best of my ability. Night, Zoe. That's my email, guys. I don't usually put it in the chat, but there's quite a few of you guys who are expressing some current concerns. A lot of times when I have these open discussions, people are talking about previous stuff, nothing that is actively occurring, but hearing some of you guys and your struggles with some of your children who are adults actively, I want to help if you guys are comfortable with me helping. So that's my email, or you can follow me or DM me on either Twitter, Instagram, whatever you have, whatever you're comfortable with. If you want the help, reach out to me. I will do my best to help you. There are things that I know of from my work on how to work around certain things. I don't want to talk about all of those here. Not to put you guys on blast, not to put anybody on blast that may watch this in replay, or for anybody to feel targeted or triggered more so than what these conversations can trigger people. So please, if you want to reach out to me, I will check my email before I go to bed tonight, and I will check it tomorrow as well. I will, country princess. I appreciate everybody who's saying to tell him thank you. Yeah, those are some really severe substances as well. I'm so sorry, Sybil. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your username correctly. Okay. So, man, you guys, I'm so sorry some of you guys are struggling with your children. People often take, when I say I work for CPS, and they get scared. I definitely understand, and I have worked cases where it's at no fault of the parents. and I don't know if that's scared people before from telling me about their struggles with their children, even when their children are adults. Um, resources, I'm not dumb. I know resources are not always available for everybody where you're at. And depending on the situation, you sometimes can exhaust everything and still feel there's nothing for you to help your situation. I will tell you, sometimes you just have to think outside the box. I've had to learn through my work with CPS, through my current job, ways to think outside of the box to help people in addiction, children in addiction, families struggling with mental health. I've learned how to legally and appropriately, with the resources typically available in most states, how to work around some of these things. So I feel so bad that some of you guys have been really struggling with some things going on in your personal lives on top of like everything else as the world, and if you're in the US, that we've been dealing with. It's just so hard. Like, life doesn't stop. There's a reason, and everybody who's able to talk anything about what they're currently struggling through, you guys have like all of the respect. I know how hard it is to talk about like serious issues, whether that's like what you're dealing with personally or what you've known people to deal with. I have mentioned even in this chat that I have family members that I know who have struggled with some serious issues. And I've always been, even about my work, I've always been a little bit hesitant into like revealing what I do to you guys. And it is so dumb when I see some of the, when I see what you guys put in here, it makes it like, I just feel like I wish I would have been a little bit more vulnerable with you guys sooner and let you know like my previous work, what I currently do. So maybe I could have helped sooner. And I'm not trying to make it about me at all. I'm just saying, like, I wish I would have had these conversations. That way, if you were feeling at a loss of resources or you were feeling like you hit a brick wall, maybe with people knowing now what I've done and what I currently do, they will be more comfortable to reach out to me to ask for resource assistance, because to be honest, I offer it every week when I do these, and it's very seldom that people do reach out to me, which I'm not expecting people to, but sometimes when I see things in chat, I do expect a DM from people and they don't follow through with it, and I can't message them on YouTube. It's not like I can go to their profile and say, hey, you disclosed this. Are you doing okay? If you don't tell me who you are on a different social media, we all have, like, if you're not a YouTuber, typically your usernames are different on each platform. So I can't always correlate the two. This is a me issue, not a you guys issue. This is just how my head is going right now. I want to help you guys. I want to help your families. I don't want people to be struggling with these things. I'm so sorry, Sybil. I appreciate that, country princess. That is extremely nice of you to offer. Resources in a lot of areas are super, super depleted. It's really unfortunate. Probably since you can't send DMs on YouTube anymore. Okay, country princess. I would appreciate that. Oh my gosh. So I know we're in a heavy spot. I unfortunately do need to get off of here. It's 8:30 here. I have to finish getting everything ready for my work week, which is short this week. So for everybody who has provided their story throughout tonight's live stream, for everybody who's been willing to talk about their struggles, definitely, it's definitely appreciated. I appreciate every single one of you who were in chat or who watch us in the replay. You guys are all amazing. If you are still struggling with addiction or if you have made your way to recovery, that is amazing. You have all of my support. If anybody ever needs anything, feel free to reach out to me. If you live in the States and you need help with resources, you can always call United Way from a phone, which is just *211, and ask for your local resources. There's more than that that's available. So always ask around. If you're uncomfortable doing so, you can always reach out to me and I will do my best to help find additional resources for you in your area. But with all of that being said, to anybody who has disclosed anything serious or needs follow-up or wants follow-up, feel free to email me. It is in the chat, which will go away and probably load in a day or two, but I will make sure to drop my Twitter and my email. I don't know how to get my Instagram link because I don't know my password. My phone signs me in automatically. So you can just search up my YouTube name in Twitter or in Instagram and my account should pull up. But I hope everybody is able to have a safe evening. Again, feel free to reach out to me if anybody needs it. No pressure. If anybody feels triggered, please be sure to call any resource that you need or any hotline number that may be needed. But with all of that being said, I really hope you guys have a good evening. And I will see you guys next week. The vote will go up on Friday for next week's topics. If you have any suggestions, you can DM me or email me them. Otherwise, I will see my members on Sunday, and I will see the rest of you next Monday. Bye, guys.